Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Rage video. I am your host, Stephen Fry. Yeah, sorry, ladies and gentlemen. You know what's quite strange is that I watched a repeat of QI. I think it was towards the end of Stephen Fry's tenure as the presenter. And I never really found out something very strange about Stephen Fry that I never really sort of like considered until quite recently. It shouldn't be Stephen Fry asking the BBC for him to do another series. It should be the BBC asking Stephen Fry to continue doing it. Because who presents it now? Like Sandy Toshvik or no, it's not Sandy Toshvik. I don't quite know. I don't really know who presents it nowadays. But have you thought about them? Who's actually? It's like Jimmy Carr and Jeremy Clarkson not allowed on that show anymore, because I haven't seen them in years. And well, Clarkson is a bit more. There's probably good reasons why he's probably not allowed back. But Jimmy Carr is still somebody they ask quite frequently. David Mitchell. Phyllis Jupiter? Yeah, it's Phyllis Jupiter. What about Ross Noble? Where the hell has Ross Noble been on the BBC? He hasn't been on that sort of show for years. But with that being said, Ross Noble refuses. I haven't seen him on Have I Got News For You? I haven't seen him on... Well, Ross Noble never goes on Mock the Week nowadays because, Ross Noble is too good for that show, and, because Ross Noble can actually write his own jokes. To that, I say, you want to know what's quite interesting, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to explain to you exactly why I brought up this very little tangent, is that when you look back over your life and you consider just the amount of bullshit time you've spent on things, like, to you it may not seem like bullshit, but in retrospect, certain things really do come across as bullshit. And I think that's a very interesting thought. The idea that we can only look back and realise things. We can't look ahead and realise, you know what, that seems like a really sensible idea to do. We should start doing it now. There are other scenarios in place where you realise that would it made any difference whatsoever, because you know what, I gave it a try, but it didn't amount to anything. I'm talking about wasted years, and you may remember me back in 2018, ladies and gentlemen, where I was sitting in a studio wearing this exact hoodie. I didn't quite have the shades back then. And I was talking about all of this in regards to wasted years. But what exactly is wasted years? Well, it is what you consider to be waste. And with that being said, I think the best thing to do right now is to let Brucey Boy. Also, the more I think about it, because this is a song that actually primarily concerns Bruce Dickinson himself, was this written, I'm pretty sure maybe Steve Harris might have had led Bruce, because Bruce was writing his own stuff around about this time, and I don't particularly think like it would have been fair for someone like Steve Harris. Well, actually, maybe they both wrote it, for all we know. But with all that being said and done, if you guys want to check out the original video for yourselves, links will all be in the description down below. Let's begin. Wasted Years in 3, 2, 1, and... Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and that was Wasted Years by Iron Maiden. Now, let me try and get back to what I was trying to say earlier and how this all works in, because if the lyrics were anything to go by, this is basically a song where Bruce Dickinson, and maybe this would have been the same for everyone else involved, is that Bruce was getting rather homesick, and I suppose maybe he was caught in sort of like a dilemma about whether or not all of this was actually worth it, or maybe years before when he was in groups like Samson, did Bruce sort of feel as if like, I'm not going to get anywhere doing this, why don't I just go back to supporting West Ham or whatever it is I do? Oh dear. Make it about football. Yeah, that's the thing to do in times like these. But the fact is that the song is true. It's absolutely true, is that there will be a point in time later in your life that you'll look back on your life and you'll realize that either, you know what, you've either wasted a tremendous amount of your time, or the time you're living in right now is the best of your life that you're ever going to get. It's kind of a bit of a morbid, sort of like a bittersweet sort of feeling, because you know what? I thought the exact same thing back then in 2018 when I was in my last year of university, and I was sort of like thinking to myself, you know what? I didn't necessarily have the best time at university, but you know what? I'm going to at least see it through, because it's not because I want to, like, you know, admit to liking or going to miss this place, but it was admitting to myself that I was not going to let myself be defeated. I wasn't going to, you know, be dragged sort of like kicking and screaming through life, realizing that all I have to look forward to is just a life of just being incredibly underwhelmed by everything, and realizing that nothing I could do could ever change that. You've got to be more optimistic about life than that, ladies and gentlemen, and you've got to understand is that you've got to pay the price for the choices you make. It's a part of being responsible, ladies and gentlemen, is understanding exactly where you're going in life and what is it you want out of life. That's only something that you guys at home can answer. You have to understand and you have to decide what is your life and why is it in your hands and what are you going to do with it from now on. Because when you think about it, because my days at university are long gone. I feel like my days of, you know, education are sort of at an end as well. That depends, well, can you count your days at education ever coming to an end? Because relating to what it said in Wasted Years, too much time on my hands, I've got you on my mind. Meaning that no matter where you are in life, can you ever stop thinking about something? This is despite the fact that, you know what, maybe that's a sign of being a little bit lost in life, that you've realized you've got all this time in the world, but what are you going to do with it now? Shall I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, sort of like a philosophy I've sort of established when it comes to time, because I have one eye set on the future and one eye always watching the clock. Because let's not make any mistake about this, ladies and gentlemen. At some point, I will die. At some point, you watching this video right now will die. Sooner or later, everything must die. So, and that's not even really that shocking to begin with, because it's something we all realize. It's all something that happens naturally, or maybe not so naturally in certain cases. The point I'm trying to get across here, ladies and gentlemen, is that, well, ever since I graduated university on the 4th of July 2019, American Independence Day. So when you think about it from that sort of point of view, ladies and gentlemen, life for me at that point was very simple. I was 21 years old. I have got the rest of my life to look forward to. If I was to say live up to, let's say, about 71, that's still 50 long years of my life left. What I do with it from now on is my deal. What I do with it is my choice and my responsibility. In the same way as it was Bruce Dickinson's collective choice to decide what he wanted to do. And when you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's safe to say Bruce made the right choice to stay. I don't even remember there was ever being like a conflict or a discussion about Bruce wanting to leave, apart from like when he wanted to do like solo work, I suppose. But then again, Bruce was already a certified star in Iron Maiden anyway, so what can you do about that? Also, speaking of Bruce Dickinson, a little bit of a side note is that I only found out a few months ago that apparently he did a cover version of Mott the Hoop's All the Young Dudes, I believe it was called. And it was funny enough they credited it as just being Bruce Dickinson because they basically had all the boys from Iron Maiden behind him, and I could tell because of their hair. It was the first thing that gave it away. It could have been Cinderella dressed as East London boys, but no, it's you could tell that was Iron Maiden at the first sight. Interesting, I suppose. Maybe I should do a video on that one day, perhaps. Well, everything's in the future. You know what? Nothing's set in stone because. Okay, let's get this back to 1 second. If let's say when I established that when I was 21, here I am at 23, meaning I've got about 47 years and 8 months to look forward to of life. Well, where is it going? Or what's it going to... You ever see that meme where they said, you know what, this is how it started, this is where it is going? Well, you can put me up on that. You could honestly... You could probably tell to me right now that, you know what, you look exactly the same, you're in the exact same position, you're in the exact same point in time from when you started compared to where you are now. Now, despite that being, you know, a scientific phenomena, because no such occurrence could ever be true in history, there is something to be said about almost going round in circles, and wasted years is sort of like the same sense where another city goes by, meaning that places beginning to look interchangeable and not very distinct. You know when Metallica, they mentioned a line in that on some point on Kill 'Em All, and yet it sort of occurred to me that Metallica back then were young and none of them were even in their 20s yet. Here's Bruce Dickinson singing about all this, and he must have been late 20s, like early 30s, something like about that. So what does he think about now that he's had time to ponder about this? For that matter, what do I sound like when I'm talking about this in my early to mid 20s? I know I'm gonna like, without this going on forever, I kind of like just want to say right now, I really enjoyed Wasted Years anyway, because it seemed to be just like, let's try and cheer everyone up and write something a little bit compelling about this, and even write a very good song to it as well. But the thing I just kind of like wanted to say right now, ladies and gentlemen, you know what? It's better to sort of like have these things out in the open right now, because, you know what? Oh God, what was I going to mention? It's very simple, ladies and gentlemen. We could either sit here and do nothing for the remainder of our lives, or we could put our lives into our own hands and we could learn to stop wasting our time. You must remember, ladies and gentlemen, that wasting time is one of the most insane ways you can piss me off. Nothing is worse on this planet than people who waste time, because that's time I could have been using to say that I love my family, or saying that, you know what, a relative that I'm grateful for their time with me, or something like that. It's a song sort of like it's about dealing with the future, but also keeping one eye on the possible idea of regret, which could be just as heartbreaking as, you know, being homesick. So it's very simple, ladies and gentlemen. You know what? Do or do not. To paraphrase my motto for this channel, just to close out, there is work to be done, ladies and gentlemen. There is always more work. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this reaction video. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys thought of Wasted Years by Maiden. And I will hope to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye for now.